Hi, and welcome back to the Bandwich Tapes. I'm Brad Williams. On today's episode, I'm thrilled to have a conversation with Dr. Brett Dietz. Brett is the director of percussion at Louisiana State University in Baton Rouge. I also have a personal connection to him because he was my son's percussion professor while he was a student at LSU. We cover a wide array of topics, including Brett's beginnings as a performer, his time at LSU as director of percussion, as well as his career as a composer. I think it's a great conversation, and I was really inspired by his words, and I'm sure you will be too. So without further ado, here's my conversation with Dr. Brett Dietz. Hello, Brett. How's it going today?
Good. How are you doing, Brad?
I'm doing really well. I appreciate you taking some time to chat with me today on the podcast. I have a unique relationship to you in that you probably saw my son for a period of time more than I did while he was a student at LSU.
Right.
And I guess I just want to start by publicly saying how much I appreciate your influence on him and how much he values your relationship and thinks of you just as a human being.
Oh, that's great. Thank you so much. Skyler is a great human being, and I had a wonderful 4 years with him, and very, very talented drummer, percussionist, and a very, very good person. And I've really enjoyed working with him as much as I did.
Well, and in your role, and speaking as a parent, when parents send their children to college, they want good people to pour into them and be good influences on them. And I would say that Lisa and we feel so lucky that he chose LSU because of his relationship with you. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you for sending him, and thank you for trusting me in that way. I appreciate that, Brad.
Yeah, absolutely. So that all that said, you are the director of percussion at LSU. How long have you been there?
I just finished my 21st year at LSU.
Wow.
Started in 2003, fresh out of my doctoral program from Northwestern University. I spent 2 years there with the one and only Michael Burritt, who is now at the Eastman School of Music.
Yeah.
And I had a really, wonderful experience there with Michael and the rest of the faculty, as well as some of my classmates. Some of my classmates are, some of the biggest names in the business right now, and I was very fortunate that I got to work with them for 2 years. But then I got out of finished up my coursework, finished up my exams, and then could not land a gig. So it was in the summer of 2003. I had applied for numerous positions, Delta State in Cleveland, Mississippi, Emporia State in Kansas, and nobody was interested. Well, they were interested, but I didn't win the gig. And so my partner and I, at that point, who is not my wife at the moment. So my wife Jennifer calls my first marriage my practice marriage, and we my practice marriage wife and I we looked for another apartment outside of Evanston because we knew that we wouldn't be able to afford Evanston and still live in Chicago, and so we put a down payment on a place because they had a gig outside of Evanston that was kind of a church gig, and worked a lot there actually. And so we bought that place, and then all of a sudden some things happened at LSU, and LSU started calling people, and they called Michael Burritt, and Michael Burritt said, I got the perfect guy for this. His name's Brett Dietz. You guys should give him a look. I applied, and in 2003, was able to get the 1-year appointment. So it was a 1-year teaching position, and then I auditioned again or applied again for the full-time job, and I won the full-time job in 2004.
Wow. And you've been there ever since.
And I have been here ever since. Yes. So how is the
studio different from when you first started there? What all have you changed? Have you seen and things maybe you've tweaked along the way with how the operation of the percussion studio?
Well, it's interesting because I wouldn't say that when you have a job like this, you have to be tweaking constantly in terms of what the field expects, and the equipment is a big part of the job. And what I've really noticed is there's two things. Well, one, we had initially at LSU, we were able to really scholarship out-of-state students very, very well. And then the recession happened in 2008, and then we weren't able to do that anymore. So it's been a challenge to kind of figure out how to get students from out of state into the school. We have really, really great, talented kids in Louisiana too. So what basically, we just the amount of scholarships that we were ever to get kind of shrank a little bit. Mm-hmm. So that sort of affects any school of music. I mean, it's almost like, I hate to use sports as an analogy for that, but it's kind of, we have to scholarship students in order to maintain the quality of the large ensembles, the quality of the academics, and all those sorts of things. So, we definitely need to do that. It's much like, handing a scholarship to a baseball player. Sure. It's the same kind of concept. The recession happened in 2008, so it just kind of tweaked, the style of student, And now, since there's two things. Well, that's the one thing. Maybe there are three. The second thing that is really interesting is the technology.
Yeah.
And so essentially, when I started in 2003, the internet wasn't brand new, but it was relatively new. Yeah. I mean, because I didn't even have an email until I went to college.
Right.
So.
Right. I'm with you.
I'm 52, and I got my email from I did my undergrad at Duquesne University in Pittsburgh, and I think I got my email my sophomore year. Mm-hmm. Or something, and the internet came out my sophomore year,
right?
Like 1993 or something. Yeah. When Al Gore created the internet.
That's right.
Yes, and so then, so anyway, we have these students that have they're very technically savvy, which is great, and I've learned a lot from them, but another thing that's interesting is the amount of social media that they're using. Okay. And sometimes that's a really good thing. And then sometimes it can be detrimental sure. to the students. So it's a plus or minus kind of system. And then the pandemic happened. And then, that was interesting because that's when your son Skyler came.
Yeah.
And he came in, I think it was it 2020? He came in the fall of 2020 or
it was the fall of 2020.
Yeah. And so we basically had some students at that point who didn't even go to a prom or a graduation, you know? And so there was significant milestones that were kind of missing from them. And so, and for a while I used to call it we have, the COVID hangover, mm-hmm. And it's 2025, and we still kind of have the COVID hangover, still a little bit. I think that.
I agree.
Yeah, I think that there's, I have great students. I have really wonderful students, but there's also, I think there's some trauma, that they're all kind of dealing with. So, and that's sort of what I see.
I agree. I'm a tech director at a school here in St. Louis, and I work with much younger students than you, but I think in the education field, we're all seeing these lasting effects from that isolation period, where a lot of that developmental piece maybe didn't happen the way that it should have, or the way that it had in the past. And yeah, I think this ripple effect, we're going to feel it for a long time.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that even when we're going, with the students that we have now, and it's been great. I still have students from all over the country that come and want to do percussion, which is awesome, like all the way up to the doctoral level.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that what I really see is, that period of time in the middle schools, like 2020 through the middle schools.
Yes.
One of the big ways that I really decided that I wanted to do music was my middle school band director, Norma Corwin. Okay. And Norma really developed, one of the things she did, we played in middle school band, we played the first movement of Beethoven 5 or something. And it was probably terrible. I go back and I think about it, but for me, it was like, oh, this was such a monumental moment for me. But what she did was she put up, the form on the board, and this is the exposition, this is the development, this is the recapitulation, this is what happens when we're going here, this is this key center, and she did all that for us. And I was the geeky kid in the back that was just like, this is the greatest thing that has ever happened in my life. This is so cool.
Yeah.
And Norma really turned me on into, going on, down the musical path. And when I think about, those middle school kids, they're coming now, right? And did they miss that? You know what I mean? And is that not something in their vocabulary that they have, or something, or an experience that they had that that I didn't have, that I had that they didn't have, So and so there's developmental issues musically because like a whole year of their life was erased,
right?
And
I would say that middle school period as a musician is it is so crucial in the development of just understanding how to practice, understanding just the technical piece of it, and just sparking that interest, like what happened with you when you were that age, that set you on a path to be a musician and an educator,
Right. I mean, definitely. Yeah. I mean, I also had I had really good band directors in high school. I remember Clem Rowland and Rusty Pontier were great people, really influenced me a lot and set me on the path. But I definitely know that the middle school was where it really started with me.
Yeah. When did you start studying privately, having a percussion?
I started studying privately when I was in middle school, believe it or not. It was either 6th grade or 7th grade. And I studied with a guy named George Saranovich in Pittsburgh. And George, he played with a band called Love in the 60s, and was pretty much one of the big freelance drum set players in Pittsburgh when I met him. And I stopped studying with George probably at the end of 8th grade because I was going into high school, and even though I love music, I didn't know that I wanted to do it as a career until it turned on again in my sophomore year. It was like, okay, I want to do this. I definitely had some academic problems my first semester of my freshman year because I was really into girls. And that
I'm with you.
That sort of happened, and then I sort of turned it around the second semester of my freshman year. And then by my sophomore year, I had a really good experience with a drumline instructor that was, pretty outstanding. Well, I had 2 really good drumline instructors, the first of which was Sam Hazo, believe it or not, the composer.
Really?
Yes. So Sam Hazo, my freshman year at Montour High School, was our drumline instructor. Okay. And Sam was great, and Sam has made a great name for himself as a composer in the band world for sure.
Yeah.
And and then I had another guy Stretch. His name was Stretch. I can't remember his first name. Stretch Russell, and he was and Stretch actually went on to perform with one of the girls, famous girls from the 80s. The girl who sang "I Think We're Alone Now," that recover.
Yes.
That cover. I'll think of her name in a minute, but yeah, he went on. He toured with her for a while. He did some musical work, but anyway, he was a real big influence for me. And then I started studying with a guy named Jack Deaney, and Jack was the principal timpanist for the Ballet Opera Orchestra and CLO in Pittsburgh, and was the owner of Volkwine's Music and pretty much a big deal. And I got to work with Jack all the way up until I decided to go to college. And then I ended up going to Duquesne University.
Yeah. And I think he has, you still have a relationship with him because I believe he came to LSU.
Oh, yeah.
Skyler says wonderful things about him and just such a great instructor and pinpoints some things to fix in your playing.
Oh, yeah. Jack is kind of like, I call him the Mr. Miyagi of percussion. and the thing that was so good for me with Jack was just his intimate knowledge of the Muller technique. Mm-hmm. And how to make the sticks work, and how to use body motion correctly with the sticks to make everything work efficiently.
Yeah,
and I spent most of my time with Jack with that. He knew I could read, I could practice. I have two funny stories about Jack. The first one was my first lesson with Jack. I went in and I came in and played, and he listened to me. I don't even know what I played. I can't remember. And Jack is he's like this short, bald Italian guy with a huge mustache. Okay. And he still has it, he's great. And he has this voice, and he just said, he looked at me, and it was this blank. It was this like, not, I wouldn't say blank stare, but it was this cutting stare. He looked at me and he said, "You don't even look like a drummer."
Wow.
Okay. So that was the first thing he said. And then we started using the sticks, so we started really he had a problem with how I was holding the sticks. He had a problem with the way I was not using my arms, only using my wrists, and just boom, like a whole hour of this. So that was the first one. And then the second lesson I had with Jack, we had, my family and I had gone to Toronto, Canada to see the Phantom of the Opera, because this was the late 80s, and the Phantom of the Opera was like,
it was the big deal.
The bee's knees, you know what I'm saying? So we had to go see the Phantom of the Opera, and I didn't practice enough. And so I played my etude for Jack on the second lesson. And I must have just been horrible, just trying to get through it and not playing very well. And he says, "Well, I'll tell you one thing, Brett." And I said, "Well, what's that, Jack?" He said, "Well, if that's all the more you're going to practice, you better learn to sight read a whole hell of a lot better than that."
Yes, sir.
And so that was the last bad lesson I ever had with Jack.
Yep.
Those first two lessons, and I knew that, and I would tell my parents, if something happened, or, "Hey, I didn't get to work enough, we are canceling." Because I am not going to sit here and waste his time, and I don't want to be yelled at for an hour, But it really got me to a point where Jack motivated me to practice. Now, Jack is very old school. He was, and that's the way it was. And I got, when I, got old enough and I was 18 and went to college and I got into the Musicians Union in Pittsburgh and all those sorts of things, that's how we were taught.
Yeah. I was taught. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. We were, if you were doing something wrong, you were told.
Yeah.
And then it was not, it wasn't a feel good moment for you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And that's just, that's how, and it wasn't just, a person like Jack, but it was the guys in the horn section. It was the guys in the string section, you're sitting down there playing, let's just say, 1776 or something, and you screw up, you're going to hear about it at the intermission, and what you did wrong and how you're going to fix it. Okay. Yeah. So that's how I was taught. Okay. And you sort of learn that, well, it was not politically correct.
Yeah, right.
It was not. It was. Yeah. It was very much in your face. Okay. And so and as I've gone through life now and been here at LSU for so long, it's been hard to get myself out of that mindset sometimes. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I go back to that old school kind of mentality. And my students just look at me like, what, and then I go, okay, hold on. Sorry. Let's back up a second. Let's think of it a different way, so that's been kind of interesting too, in terms of, starting in 2003 and being here in 2005 or 2025, So.
Yeah, right. And I would say in that period of time, I mean, culturally, I would say things have shifted a lot in the approach to how students are taught or how they're communicated with. And yeah, I've seen it certainly in that span of time. I will tell you that one of the things that Skyler, he would always call me. He tended to call a lot on lesson days with you, which he always wanted, because he always enjoyed it. He always took a lot away from it. And the thing that he always would say to me is that you have such a wonderful ability to just make these slight adjustments to a technical or a musical idea that would then have this massive impact on how he would play something. And first of all, that's amazing. And kudos to you for doing that. But is that an intentional thing that you've developed over the years, that to really just kind of get into the weeds and find the smallest item that would have the largest payoff? Or what is your approach on that as a teacher?
So I think it comes from actually learning how to teach. Mm-hmm. And the only way that you can really learn how to teach is to teach.
Yeah.
You can, and look, we have at LSU, we have a great music education program. I mean, they're just so great at everything that they do. And you can have all this psychology, and which is good. You can have all this, all the kind of nuances that they're trying to give you to kind of get in there and be an effective teacher, which is great. But the only way it happens is when you're in the field and you do it.
Yeah,
you can think of all these things and go, well, and then you could adjust to that. But what I've learned is seeing a part of the student within myself. So when I see the student struggling with something or having an issue with something, I remember it. I remember back to the time when I was struggling with it and what worked for me. Mm-hmm. And so over the years, you start to categorize all these things and store them in your hard drive, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh, there's that problem again, and it comes back out. To me, like the with snare drum, even it's like classical snare drum. It's basically what students have the most problem with is bead placement. The beads they're all out of whack. They're not in the same spot of the head, so they're not getting a good sound.
Yeah.
Secondly, the roll, either double stroke or multiple bounce. It has a lot to do with bead placement. That's it. Obviously there's finger issues, there's arm issues, there's all these things that they have to think about. But for most of the students that I've experienced at LSU, they're just not hitting the drum in the right spot.
Yeah. It's as simple as that.
It's very, very simple. And then when you say, oh, well, do this, and oh, okay. A lot of students with the roll now, because we call it a buzz roll, and it's not really a buzz roll, it's a multiple bounce roll.
Right.
And so when they're rolling on the drum, it sounds, very choked. Like it sounds choked, and I call it the grain of the roll. So is the grain tight? Is the grain loose? And, are there times when you need to do both? And yeah, well, there are. And the problem is the students don't know what they are or when to do which, so you help them do that and help them discover that. Yeah. What I try to do in every lesson, if I can, is to find some kind of technical problem and some kind of musical problem every time. Okay. Because obviously if a student plays for you for 50 minutes, you're going to see multiple of each of those scenarios, right? So what I tend to do is just at least give them one of each, okay? And then, if they can at least do that one thing better before they leave in the hour that they see me, there's at least progress, and they can move forward to the next step that they want to move forward to. So I think that's sort of how I go about teaching. And then there's then there's keyboard, then there's timpani, then there's like tambourine, which I'm terrible at. Like I have some students that are great tambourine players, and I just look at them like, yeah, you got it, man, because I'm horrible at this instrument. So you just go ahead and do what you're doing because it's awesome.
Yeah. Well, and I have listeners to this podcast that are just avid music listeners, or people that play instruments, and people that are not percussionists, and they're probably sitting here like, tambourine? But I'm with you. It's a deceptively difficult instrument to play technically well, but musically well, right?
Yes.
And what facility you're going to use to accomplish whatever the passage is that you're trying to play, right? Is it shake? Is it a thumb roll? Is it a finger roll? Is it, where do you play on the head? I mean, there's a lot going on with that little crazy instrument.
Yes. Well, there's a lot going on with that. There's a lot going on with a triangle.
Yes.
That a lot of people, I don't know if you remember Ed Grimley, from Saturday Night Live. Oh, yes. Triangle lesson. Yes. And people, it's kind of funny, and it's funny, Martin Short doing Ed Grimley, but there's like just trying to hit the triangle and make it similar every time is almost impossible.
Yeah.
It's the same thing, Jack DeAnnie, when Jack came and did the couple master classes at Duquesne the last couple of years, like he did it on chimes. Like he would have a person just stand up and play 10 soft notes on the chimes and try to make them all sound the same.
I'd never even thought of that as such an illustration of consistency and musicality. And
yeah. And we stood up about 4 students, and none of them could do it.
Right.
I'm not sure that I could. It's just, and it's just kind of, the idea that, how you use the implement to hit the instrument, and the technique that you're using to do it is so important.
Yeah. Wow. That's, man, it kind of fills me with a little bit of anxiety right now just thinking about having to do that.
Yeah.
Because that's not easy.
No, it's not easy.
It's not easy. Wow. Yeah. That's really good. How big is the studio at LSU, and what is the division of performance and education majors?
Well,
and undergrad and graduate students too.
Okay. We're around like 22 to 25, mostly. And we're, I have 5 grad students currently. I'll have 5 this year. And I've had 5 now, or 4 for the past, I would say probably like 6 or 7 years. I have students, I have TA positions, and I do have some students that come and aren't on TAs. And the master's program right now at LSU is a little, it's I wouldn't say it's fine. Our previous president decided that we needed to fund doctoral students, and so what we've raised the TA positions to the doctoral level to a pretty significant amount, like almost $24,000 a year. But then that means that they didn't really want to fund any master students, and so their commentary was, well, master students should pay, and that's not a really good thing for a school of music or a school of theater, because especially the school of theater, the exit degree, and that's not the right word, but the terminal degree, that's it. The terminal degree is actually a master's, right?
Right.
In theater. So, and we need master students, to help, facilitate large ensembles and things like that. So that kind of put us in a weird sort of position. So, and the master students have been less at LSU for the past couple of years, although I've had some. I've had, I'll have one next year, and I've previously had one for the past 2 years. And then the undergrads, like I said, it's about 18 to 20, depending on the year. And I have a wide variety of students in my studio. I think that it's different for different studios, I think, in terms like for the saxophones or the clarinets or something like that. I wouldn't know, but I know for me, we have ed students, music ed students, we have Bachelor of Arts students, and we have Bachelor of Performance students as well. So we have BMs, BAs, and BMEs. And it's a wide variety in my studio. I have a lot of BA students, I have a lot of performance majors, and then I have a lot of education majors. So it's not, I wouldn't say it's half and half. It's really thirds in terms of the undergrad with those 3 degrees.
And I imagine there's also the challenge of having everyone play at a certain level, but obviously some performance major is going to play at a different level than someone doing an education major.
Yeah,
right? I mean,
yeah, and the whole idea too is getting them to understand how to function together.
Right. Exactly.
And that's a big thing because a person that is a performance major. And I have some that are just like gung ho, and they're all in. And then there's a person that's a BA that's actually studying, arts administration, and they're not here to play the drum perfectly like this performance major. So the idea of allowing people to coexist with one another in the same space and be civil and cordial to each other is, because percussionists are percussionists,
Yeah, they sure are.
And we have opinions, and we like to tell people our opinions, which is not good. Sometimes it's good, and sometimes it's not good, and and I am just as guilty of that as any of my students are, and but that's really the hard part because we all have to work as a unit,
right?
In terms of getting people and things where they need to be all the time. It's not good when one person doesn't show up for a move, and then you have to kind of struggle to kind of fix those issues. A lot of those issues I put off on my doctoral students, but it's like, you guys take care of that. And sometimes they do a good job and sometimes they don't, and then that's also a learning process too for the doctoral students, to kind of like, okay, how do you handle that situation when somebody doesn't show up, and that's also a part of their training though too.
Yeah, well, and that's a skill set they will have to know for the rest of their career. So
exactly.
Learning how to navigate that as early as possible is quite crucial.
Right.
So you're this amazing educator, amazing performer, but you also have this other huge part of what you're doing as a composer, which is, and let me say, I'm such a fan of your work as a composer. I watched the performance of when you perform "Rivers Will Flow" at LSU.
Right.
Such a powerful piece of music.
Thank you.
But a lot of percussionists tend to kind of stay in their lane and compose for percussion, and that's kind of all. But you compose for multiple instruments, right? You compose for wind ensemble. You compose, I think you've done stuff for orchestra, right? Yep. You compose across the board. How did that piece come into your interest, and how did you? Where did that start, and how did you develop it?
Okay, this is a funny story. It's a great story though. It started when I was in high school. I had a rock band. I had a garage band in high school, and we were called the Septic Cryptics. Okay? And so the Septic Cryptic was, we went to band camp in this, I forget where it was, but it was in this, it looked like an old monastery or something. And we would go there to this place, and it was the sewage system. And one of the guys in the band said, "Oh, that's the Septic Cryptic." So we became the Septic Cryptics. And one of the things I learned how to do is how to actually create within a group. Like that was the first thing. So we started to learn to do that. Some of the worst songs ever created, but we created them. And the bass player in my band, the Septic Cryptics, was a pretty famous man known as Doug Perkins.
Oh, Doug Perkins, yeah.
Okay, so Doug is the chair of percussion at the University of Michigan. And Doug also studied with Jack DeAnnie. Okay. And I was the drummer, and Doug was the bass player of the Septic Cryptics.
What?
Yes. And so we kind of did all that stuff together. Doug was a freshman when I was a senior in high school. And of course, you know, Doug has gone on to have an amazing career. He's an amazing player, amazing musician. And, you know, I am just so happy that I've known him for so long. And he's such a wonderful guy. And so I started with that. And then I went to Duquesne and I studied percussion. I studied percussion with the whole trio. It's a quartet, actually. It was Jerry Unger, who was associate principal of the Pittsburgh Symphony, Andy Reamer, who I studied with the whole time, and Andy just retired from the Pittsburgh Symphony, and he also runs drummer service, and he makes rope drums and the famous Alan Abel stick people use, and I studied with Andy, which was awesome. But I studied timpani with Stanley Leonard. And Stan is a composer. And Stan he writes a lot for percussion ensembles, solo timpani, and, you know, he writes a lot for organ, you know, still. And I think he's 93 this year and still writing music. You know, he'll send me a piece every once in a while, and we'll do it at LSU. So anyway, one day, Stan just said, "Is anybody interested in writing music?" And I raised my hand. So I started working on something with Stan, and I don't even remember what it was. It might have been this piece called "Not One Sparrow" that was for flute and vibraphone that I wrote for one of the guys in my percussion band a while back, and his girlfriend at the time, and we worked on that together. And I was really into contemporary music. I really enjoyed it. I would at Duquesne. I started to work with David Stock, who was the curator of the Pittsburgh New Music Ensemble.
Okay.
And they were in residence at Duquesne when I was there, and we had the contemporary ensemble. So and David's work with the Pittsburgh New Music Ensemble is kind of legendary. Like, he commissioned everybody from, you know, John Cage to John Adams to, like, whoever. I mean, David commissioned everybody and won these grants to do it. And David was an amazing composer. You know, was commissioned by the New York Philharmonic, and, you know. And he was the conductor of the Pittsburgh New Music Ensemble. So the Pittsburgh New Music Ensemble would do all these awesome premieres, and we would all go to see these premieres all the time. But by these great composers that were just coming into Pittsburgh because David brought them to us. Okay. And then the following month, the contemporary ensemble would perform them again. So it was this kind of this cycle of, like, cool things happening for me. And so then I kind of started my my master's degree in percussion, still studying at Duquesne University, and I did it because I was working a lot. I mean, I started working from the time I was 18, was in the musicians union, and, you know, was doing a lot of show drumming, and I was just playing a lot. And it was a great town, easy to work. And then I started studying percussion again because I didn't know what else to do. I didn't want to quit school, so I figured, well, I'll just stay here and do this, you know. And then it kind of got to this point where, you know, with Andy and I love Andy. Andy is like was such a good teacher to me, and just really helped me become, you know, a really serious orchestral musician. He really helped me with that, and how to play the excerpts correctly, and all those things. And there was this one point where I was learning the second movement of, or either the first or the second movement of Reflections on the Nature of Water by Daniel Druckmann. Druckmann. Dan is his son, right?
Jacob Druckmann.
Jacob. Oh, sorry. So Jacob Druckmann. Daniel is his son who teaches at Juilliard. Okay, I got it all now. But anyway, I was learning Reflections on the Nature of Water, and I played it for Andy. And Andy, he was like, as Andy would do, he had this like real dry sense of humor, and he was just like, "That's great, Brett. All right, let's hear your porgy." And I just knew at that point that like I was interested in doing something that Andy couldn't help me with, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so I had written a bunch of pieces. And so I talked to the chair of the composition program at the time, who was Joseph Wilcox Jenkins, who wrote American Overture for Band. It's like it's like a classic. And I said, I would like to study composition. He says, well, you must then give me a portfolio. I said, okay, I will give you. And so I worked all night and, fixed all my scores and put them in a portfolio and put them in his mailbox. And I got accepted into the composition program. And so my master's degree was actually 3 years. Okay. Because the first year I did percussion and they extended my assistantship for the next 2 years, which was nice. And then I did a degree in composition from Duquesne, while still playing in the percussion ensemble, still playing in the orchestra, still playing in all the things that I was playing in, still working as a musician, doing all that, but studying composition. And then I went to when I went to Northwestern. Actually, just to back up a little bit, when I went, I had won an award in Pittsburgh for outstanding work in the arts. For my compositions that were getting played around town. Again, I was starting to get some national play of my compositions, which was really good. I wrote this this piece called Sharp and Stick that everybody was sort of playing. This is percussion ensemble that everybody went to. And the person who really got that piece to get the life that it had was Michael Burritt, because Michael said, "Oh, I like this. I'm gonna play it at Northwestern." And when Michael played it at Northwestern, then everybody played it.
Yeah,
it was done. Still getting played today. It's crazy. And then some of these kids, the way they, first of all, this piece, when I wrote Sharp and Stick, it was hard for us to play. It was difficult. And now I got there's freshmen at high school playing this thing. Yeah. Which is these high school players are playing it better than we ever did, So it's, especially in Texas, it's crazy, Right. But anyway, and I started writing some band pieces, and then I went to Northwestern and I wanted to declare a minor for my doctorate. And so I studied with J. Allen Yim, who was the chair of the composition program at Northwestern. So I did 2 years with Jay, who was, Jay, between, I actually studied my first year of my master's with Joseph Jenkins, who was really great. And then I did the second year with David Stock, which was tremendous. I mean, and two totally different approaches, totally different ways to go about things. And man, it was just, I was just so lucky, just very, very blessed and lucky. And then I went and I studied with J. Allen Yim, who is probably one of the most intelligent people I've ever seen. He should really be a rocket scientist. I'm not. I mean, I would go into lessons with Jay, and he would just make us, these sort of statements about something, and I would just kind of look at him and go okay, I'm really dumb. You need to tone the words down a little bit here, man. I'm a drummer. My head is level, so the drool, stable.
Comes out of yeah.
Yeah. Can you please I don't know what you said at all, But anyway, just really. And Jay was a real heady kind of a composer and that sort of thing, real, his music was very complicated, just like his mind, and very interesting. And at my time, and I won a composition award. I won the H. Robert Reynolds Band Award, and it was played by the American Wind Ensemble at Carnegie Hall in 2002. And I got to go there and do that. And I've won several band awards from there. And then I had this, in the second year of my doctorate, I actually had a stroke. And I wrote this piece about my recovery from the stroke called Head Case, Opera Introspective. And that piece has been played by my good friend Robert Moody, conductor, and he's played it everywhere. He's played it with the Detroit Symphony Orchestra, Memphis Symphony Orchestra, Winston-Salem, Portland Symphony Orchestra, the American, no, that's not what it's called. It's the Arizona Music Fest. He did it there, and I actually played the percussion part when I went
really?
there. Well, they needed a percussionist, and so the other half of the program, the first half of the program was Soldier's Tale, and I played percussion on that, and then I played my piece on the second half. And on the second half of that, I can't remember his name, but the violin player who played Soldier's Tale and that piece with me, he was the principal second of the Vienna Philharmonic, and this was a young man. If you remember the movie The Red Violin, he was the little protege, the little boy protege. Yeah. Okay, and so he was
John Coriano, I think, wrote.
John Coriano wrote that piece,
wrote that music, but the movie, right? Yes,
but this young man is in that movie. He is the the violin player. And now he's the principal. Well, I don't know what he's doing now, but when I played with him, he was the principal second of Vienna, and he was at the Arizona Music Fest and playing my piece with me.
And which probably a fantastic player, I would imagine.
Oh my goodness, this guy was amazing. So, and then I'm like, hey, so I I have a picture with him, and I sent it to my wife, like, come with this famous guy. He's playing my music, So that was really cool. So I've had a really, really fortunate series of events in my life. I've been very lucky. I have been very blessed. I have been I was so lucky to win this job when I was, 30. I was so lucky to have the opportunities that were just sort of given to me. And I'm very grateful for all of it, yeah, that's my story.
Man, well, I can tell you, as a fan of your work and a fan of you as an educator, just kudos and hats off to everything. But personally, like I said at the beginning, just in a world where I feel like young people don't get enough positive influence of role models in their lives, I'm just thankful that you are where you are doing what you do, because you are shaping the next generation, and it's going to pay in dividends that far beyond when we're no longer here. It's still going to be paying off. So I just applaud you and thank you for everything you're continuing to do.
Well, thank you so much, Brad, for having me and for doing this talk with me. I've really enjoyed it, and I enjoy you and your family, and mostly I really enjoy Skyler. He's Skyler and I have not only have we had great percussion conversations and great personal conversations, but we also have great conspiracy conversations, which are the most fruitful for me.
Yeah, I've heard about them, and maybe we'll do a follow-up episode sometime, and we can talk about those.
Yeah, for me, it's fun because it's kind of it's the what if.
That's right.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know that any of it's true, but what if it was?
What if it was? Right? That's right. Only time will tell, right?
Only time will tell. And again, you and I might be gone.
That's right.
Anybody knows anything.
That's exactly right. That's exactly it. Well, Brett, thanks for everything, and best of luck to you.
Thank you, Brad.